We're in a mid-year JK. I think this is an 11. It has the new interior. This JK has a 6.0 L96 installed, and the L96 is somewhat of a dual-purpose engine. This engine was designed essentially to haul heavy trucks. It's very conservative in its tuning. Spark timing, performance enrichment, rev limiters have all been pulled back. GM knows that these engines are going to be abused. They're not going to be maintained properly. They're going to be in a 10,000-pound truck loaded down with the driver flooring it to get up a hill and holding it floored. So the duty cycle is pretty high. So what they've done is they've really detuned the engine. And if you properly tune the 6-liter, it's a very powerful engine. One of the other advantages of the 6-liter is you can run regular gas. It doesn't have the higher compression of the 6.2s and the LS3. This JK is using our easy technology, bolt-in engine mounts, no cutting, grinding, or welding. Our easy harness, which basically means this is the factory GM harness. It's plugged into a power distribution center, interior and chassis connector. Very few wires to tap into the vehicle. This vehicle has our CAN module installed, so virtually everything you see here is being run off of the CAN. The L96 is a great motor for a lot of reasons. Not only does it run on regular gas, it's got an iron block, so it's very durable. If you want to merge on the freeway with an L96, as you can see, it's not going to be an issue. The L96 does have variable valve timing. When it's in stock trim, the VVT is very conservative, and you're probably going to notice at 3,000 to 4,000 RPM the cam phasing. So what you'll do is you'll get a lot of torque in the bottom, then it'll kind of flatten out in the mid-range, and then it'll have another burst of power. The problem is at 4,000 RPM, when the power comes back in, it starts to drop off because the rev limiters are usually in the low 5,000s. So it's not optimal for performance. Works great in a heavy-duty truck, but just not if you're looking for maximum performance. But bringing the rev limiter up, and you don't want to go too high on the rev limiter on these. The truck intakes are good for about 6,000 RPM. That's the end of the world on these truck intakes. If you do have an AFM engine, that means an air fuel management engine, you don't want to spin them up too high because those lifters can be vulnerable at the higher RPMs. The L96 does not have air fuel management, so you don't got to worry about that. Having an iron block means that this engine can handle the heat and the cold well, and if properly taken care of, I've seen L96 engines with 300,000 miles on them. They seem to run better and better the more you drive them. You can run conventional motor oil, not synthetic. You can run low-grade fuel, and this is really big if you're an expedition guy. You want to drive from Canada down into Mexico, and pretty much any kind of fuel you find along the way, whether it's the California oxygenated fuel or the really crappy fuel they sell in Utah, 85 octane, or Mexico, the L96 will run in it. The 6.2s, the aluminum engines aren't as tolerant to fuels as this L96 is. The L96 is a relatively inexpensive engine. You can pick one up for probably $2,500. And one of the unique properties of the L96 is, in 2014, General Motors dropped most of the Gen 4 support. So engines like the 5.3 truck motors and 6.2 SUV motors went out of production. Now they did continue to make a few of the engines like the LS3 for the E-Rod packages and the 5.3 LC9, but for the most part, the Gen 4s were replaced with the Gen 5 motors. GM did not have a Gen 5 counterpart for the L96 in the heavy-duty trucks. That would be the 3/4 and the 1-ton trucks. So they continued production of the L96. And one interesting fact is they brought the Gen 5 controller into the L96, and the newer 16 and 17 L96s are running off the Gen 5 electronics. So that's pretty interesting. You can still purchase a Gen 5 hybrid L96 and retro it to a Gen 4 electronics so you can use our kit with it. You can see I'm cruising up the Summerlin Parkway at the speed limit, which is 65, with very little effort. Stock JK with a 3.8 would struggle to get up here. It'd be downshifting into third quite a bit. This 6-liter just torques right up the hill. You might see an occasional downshift, but with a 6L80, the gears are spaced pretty close. So you might see a little bit of a RPM increase, but it's just a couple of hundred RPM. And with RPM match shifting, it's almost not noticeable. RPM match shifting is where the transmission and engine work together. If the engine knows that a transmission is going to shift into a different gear, being a dual clutch transmission, it can rev the motor up to match the RPM for the next gear. So when it does make that shift, it's almost imperceivable. This is very different than the 4-speed JK. With a 4-speed JK, you go from 4th to 3rd, and it's pretty dramatic. And then when you go from 3rd to 2nd, it's very dramatic. You're revving up over 1,000 RPM or close to it, and a lot of drama involved. But with the 6L80, it's just very docile. It doesn't bother you at all, and that's one of the reasons you can get on the highway and drive one of these things 800 to 1,000 miles in a day. I've done it. It's very stressful with the V6 always revving. So, getting back to the L96, if you're looking for an engine, every day I get the question, which engine do I go with? If we're going to talk Gen 4 engines in JKs, early JKs from 7 to about 13, I think you really have three choices. First is the 5.3, which is an excellent engine. The 5.3 is basically a smaller displacement version of the 6.0, at least the LMG iron motor. And on a light JK, it does a great job. It'll get reasonable economy, it'll pull you up the hills without issue. The limitations of the 5.3 are that it is a smaller displacement engine, 1.5 liters bigger than the 3.8. That means if you are going to Moab, 8,000 feet altitude, 75 miles an hour, you got 37s, you got 40s, you're towing a trailer, you're up in Salt Lake in the mountains, pulling the grades, with a 7,000 pound JK, the 5.3 is not the best choice. It just doesn't have the torque that the larger engines have. So I would not go with a 5.3 unless your JK is light, you're looking to wheel with it, and not do so much highway travel with large tires. The 6.0 solves a lot of that problem with a larger displacement. With the variable valve timing, larger displacement, the 6.0 can haul a heavy JK off the line with no issue at all, and it does a really good job on the highway. The 6.0 is inexpensive, like the 5.3. It runs on regular gas, like the 5.3. It's durable, and one of the best value for dollars in the engine swap world, in my opinion. The 6.0 is capable of being modded to put out 400 plus horsepower, but just be careful, because I have a theory that it's best to buy the horsepower you want and use a somewhat OE tune. Meaning you could take a 6.0, and I've had customers do this, put some heads on it or leave the heads on it, put a car intake on it, put a cam in it, and you're going to get 400 plus horsepower. Thing is you're going to be putting out similar horsepower to an LS3, but you're going to have a custom tune and probably have more money into it than if you had just purchased an LS3. LS3 you can easily get 450 horsepower with a factory tune and idle at 600 RPM all day long crawling. With a cam 6.0, you're going to have a little bit of a rump. You're going to be smelling the hydrocarbons from the overlap in the cam. So you might as well just buy the LS3. If you are a gearhead and you do want to mod, the 6.0 is an easy motor to get horsepower out of. Then we got the 6.2s. We got the L9H, L94, L92. They're all basically the same SUV truck 6.2 engine. They're from the same family as the LS3, but set up for a truck, so they have more torque. They're about 400 horsepower, just over 400 horsepower, and those are great motors. I have an L9H in my own JK. Once you step up into a 6.2, these are all aluminum engines, run on premium gas. They don't like to run on the lower grade fuels. They do have higher compression. They cost. You're going to have over 400 horsepower. Do you need it? Probably not. 6.0 will get the job done in your JK for a lot less money. If you do want that extra level of performance, move up to a 6.2. You're going to pay a little bit more money, and you're going to have to run the higher grade fuel. The LS3, I don't really think I need to say a lot about it. It's become pretty much the standard of the engine performance world. Perfect for racing, for crawling, for pretty much anything you want to do. The LS3 is a simple engine. No variable valve timing, no air fuel management, high compression overhead valve V8. Pretty much if you want 450-ish horsepower with really good reliability, lightweight, compact, you're willing to run premium gas, synthetic oil, get an LS3 if you can afford it. I don't think you'll be disappointed. I've done lots of LS3 swaps. Talking about the LS3, we have to move up into the 480 and the 525 engines. And yes, we have done several 480s and 525s. Now we're camming an LS3. We're getting more horsepower out of it on the top, but we're sacrificing a little bit of the bottom end drivability. If your rig is a daily driver and you're going to take it to Rubicon or Fordyce occasionally, the 480 horse may not be the engine for you. The 480 horse is more of a muscle car engine. It's got a little rump at idle. It's like camming a 6.0. It does not have a USCPA production tune related to it. There is a over-the-counter GM performance tune. It's essentially a over-the-counter GM performance engine. While you're going to be putting out closer to 500 horsepower, the flip side of that is going to be that you're going to have, the flip side of that is the drivability on the low end may not be as good as an LS3. 525 horse engine is similar. You're going to need to mod the converter to a looser stall so that it can idle higher without tugging on the brakes. You're going to want to run some premium converters if you run catalytic converters. The high cylinder pressures of the 480 and the 525 will blow out regular converters. There's a host of concerns you have with the higher horsepower engines that you don't have with the LS3. If you want that horsepower, you're okay with the muscle car rump. They're a great engine. There is an alternative now though, and getting back to this L96, this L96 is going to give you pretty much everything you need. Now, do you want more? Do you want 400 horsepower, 500 horsepower? Some guys do, some guys don't. I've got guys that are happy with 300 horsepower. All they want to do is get their JK to go down the highway without revving up and all the drama involved with trying to get it from point A to point B. A 5.3 or a 6.0 will probably do that for you. The benefits of the 6.0 are they are readily available at a good price. They are very durable. They have longevity. And on that note, of all the power adders, and that means if you put a supercharger, turbocharger, punch out your engine into a 4-liter or whatever it is, when you get a factory L96 or LMG, these engines are designed to run for hundreds of thousands of miles. So while you have a pretty big nut up front, if you keep your JK for 10 years and then you factor in the cost of rebuilding a 3.8 or a 3.6 engine, and if you have a supercharger on it, the maintenance and rebuilding of the supercharger, in the long run, after a couple of 100,000 miles, the return on investment of the V8 is just going to be that much better.